Yeah, how about that opener?
Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to 2021. We made it. TETV, first show of TETV for 2021. What a graphic. We're going to have to play that at the end of the show. We've been growing, right, Andy?
Yeah, we have. I mean, shout out to Reese Patillo for putting that opener together. She killed it, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, we really are stepping things up here. This is quite an operation. I mean, people can't see it. I got green screens, lights, cameras. I'm trying to do better in 2021.
You got a haircut?
No, actually, I'm probably growing my hair out, so we can just watch it out the air and see how that goes. But my hat doesn't really do too well on the green screen, so if I do this, like my head starts to, it's okay. It's kind of a thing that me where I had. Andy, how are you? How was your New Year's Eve?
New Year's Eve was full of just movies and booze. We just sat in the studio and watched movies. We watched my buddy Nathan and I. We watched the Oceans series, like Oceans 11. Started with 1960s Oceans 11, then we watched 2001 Ocean 11, then we watched 12, 13, and then 8.
Nice.
That was actually over New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, in which we got very drunk and watched those movies.
Yeah, I showed you the video. I won't post it on here, but we did have a firework incident.
Everybody okay?
Yeah, everything was okay. There were some injuries, but they were flesh wounds.
Most fireworks injuries are.
Well, they say the fireworks are very dangerous, and you're like, okay, and then we were just kind of rigging 4 fireworks at once, and then it just one toppled over, going straight for us or him, and then it exploded on him. And he was inside of a firework explosion. It is kind of I would play it, but there are cuss words in the video, and I don't want this gives it a friendly, it's a child friendly show, I guess.
It's mildly incriminating,
Yeah. So let's just say we have some all-stars. We have the A-listers waiting in the green room right now. Cynthia Sharpe, and Cynthia's getting all put together. And Dave Cobb, who, we were figuring out what do we do to kick off 2021. And we said, we're going to send it off with a bang. Literally we did, at least here at this residence. And we wanted to just look back and say, there were maybe some good parts about 2021. I'm sorry, 2020. I'm already not saying 2020 anymore because it's like a bad word. But I think we can look back and say there were some interesting elements. I do want to say, of course, that this has been a very traumatic year for everybody. I don't want to undersell that. It's been from an emotional toll, from a human toll, from an industry toll. It's been really, really, really tough. Having said that, we're trying to look at the brighter side and maybe share some laughs. And in no way would we mean any disrespect to COVID-19. We know that it's very serious, and as we talk about all the time. But that's the disclaimer. Now we can dive in. Let's go ahead and bring on the Cynthias and the Dave Cobbs of the world. How's it going, everybody?
Hey.
Howdy.
Dear 2020, don't let the door hit you on the ass. Right there that we're a family show.
We're not really a family show. I don't know. It's more like a viral video, like content. It's not for this show. So one interesting thing is, I've listened to podcasts and shows over the years, and I always think it's interesting to kind of peel back a bit and look into, maybe a little bit about the personal of the lives a little bit. What did we do this year? Most of the things I've pulled were all personal related. However, theme parks always seem to manage to get their way in when it comes to me. And just to share a little bit, and Dave and Cynthia we're recruiting them and grabbing them to be part of the TETV family. Some shows have been announced that Cynthia's show has been announced and working on, which is really cool. Dave has some top secret things. We're not really ready to showcase quite yet. So we thought, what better way to kick off 2021 than bringing on some TETV friends and just chatting about it a little bit. So all right, no, I don't. Now I'm full screen. I don't like maybe. Dave, breaking the wall. So Dave, just 2020. Do you want to? Can you give like a 30-second summary of how you're dealing with it all and how you feel go to 2021?
Well, if I've learned anything from this year, it is to be in the moment and to embrace change. And all of us obviously had all of that gestures wildly in their lives. And, I had my own. I was let go from a job of almost 13 years, which was like home. And, no harm, no foul. I don't hold it against them. It's COVID. It was a business decision, but it was still heartbreaking. So I had to process that. But I'm on to some really new fun things that I can't talk about yet. But it's really been a personal growth moment for me in a lot of ways, personally and professionally. I had some, on top of all of the COVID, I had some family issues to deal with. I have an elderly parent who had some minor health issues, but I had to be down to take care of them for about 70% of my time for most of the year. So in addition to COVID, I was working remotely from both places, home and her house, and getting COVID tested every week because I'm taking care of an elderly person. So I've had a lot to juggle. I've had a lot on my plate, and it's stressful, but it's also proven a lot to me about who I am and what I can do and what I'm capable of.
There we go. That's great. Well, that's the show, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks, Dave. I really appreciate it. You've been on an incredible journey, and it's like I've had an opportunity to kind of collaborate with you over the year, which has been something that we would never be able to do, which is also a part of the year and all that. We probably can dive into that a bit later. Cynthia Sharpe, how about you? 60 to 90 seconds, 2020.
Starting 2020, I was anticipating a year of ridiculous and hard change. Parent of a high school junior, it was the start of the competitive robotics season. He's on a FRC team that placed third in the world the year prior. So we were staring down the barrel of a really intense season at the same time, high school play, and our thoughts were turning towards college applications. And, our March was going to be jam-packed. I was going to be in Abu Dhabi on business. I was going to be speaking at a giant healthcare conference in Orlando. I was going to be taking the teenager on college visits in Philadelphia and New York. And then as a family, we were going on a Disney cruise to the Caribbean. And I'm painfully and awkwardly on the flip side of Dave. I still have my job, and I've had to navigate. Dave and I were partners in crime for a really, really long time, and learning how to navigate not having that creative spitballing all day, every day with Dave and with some other folks has been really, really hard. It's been a huge change, and it's really affected my creative process. And for me, my partner is in academia, but it's healthcare related academia. He's the chair of the division of pharmacology and pharmaceutical sciences, and in the School of Medicine and the School of Biology at his university. And so he's on Hospital Hill all day, every day. And so it was a very sudden, very weird, very traumatic change for our family as we suddenly had to go through a very intense, okay, you're pretty much doing a Silkwood shower as soon as you get home every single day. And the teenager home and finishing out junior year and not knowing what senior year was going to look like. But on an intensely personal note, in a way, our kid being home is a gift, because if it were a regular senior high school year, and I will go to my grave regretting that he did not get a normal, typical senior year and all of those milestones and the rites of passage. He's not going to get a prom. He's not going to get, senior show. He's not going to get a normal graduation. He's not going to get any of that. But in a normal year, we wouldn't see him. He's one of those kids with 1,001 activities, and he'd be out the door at 7:30 in the morning, and he might be home by 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and then doing homework and out with friends on the weekend, and we wouldn't see him. And then he'd be off to college next year. So I was really looking at 2020, like midpoint of 2020, as being, that's it. I'm going to have a kid who's mostly out of the nest at this point. And instead, it's been an intense season of nesting. And that has been a silver lining in a weird, slightly dysfunctional, oftentimes awkward, yeah, there's not enough space in this house for all of us. Why did we buy him the really awesome guitar amp last year? Kind of way. But that's been a little bit of a blessing for us. And in a way, everybody now being remote and everybody having to be really intentional with communicating and reaching out to one another, that is a level of connection that I usually didn't have, because y'all are in Orlando or LA and I live in Kansas. I'm not in the hotbed of the themed entertainment or themed experience universe. And so everybody having to reach out for connection has allowed me to be more involved and meet more people and be exposed to more folks and opportunities than in a regular year.
Yeah.
Well, at least your team doesn't play drums.
Yeah, so about that.
Oh,
no. It real loud in here a lot. So loud.
All right. Well, look, there is a presentation that's been put together. It's a 3-hour presentation about Patrick. No,
pretty much.
We sent the memo. Hey, throw some pictures in there. But this was actually a really big year for me. So let's go at me and the world, and then everything kind of crumbled around. So it's been very crazy. So CJ, go ahead and throw up the. Is that the beginning of it? Probably is. Cool. Smash cut to I was about to get married in February 22nd, 2020 was our wedding date. And leading up to it, we canceled our honeymoon. We were originally going to Asia, going to go to Shanghai Disneyland, and yeah, I know that's what we're going to do for our honeymoon, amongst other things. But I was going to I have never been to that park, so I was looking forward to it. And of course, going to Tokyo, Disney, all that. It's the worst. I'm the worst kind of person that's going on a honeymoon there. But we had a nice part of it too. That was going to be great. And it all got canceled because of COVID, because we know that Asia was affected a lot more. And I don't know about all you guys, but like I kind of felt like COVID-19 was just this weird thing that's like never going to get to America. That's like a problem for other people. We don't have these kind of things.
Oh, you sweet summer child.
I don't know. Did you guys, like, just thinking about that, looking back, like January, February, starting to hear like, oh, Shanghai Disneyland's closed, or etc.
I mean, I had an amazing beginning of the year in January and February because I turned 50. And so I had a big sort of blowout weekend on my 50th birthday. We did this epic trip to Puerto Vallarta and had this beautiful beachside, stayed there for 7 days, and it was gorgeous. And that was only in February. So it was really the beginning of like an auspicious year. Much like Cynthia, I had a ton of travel planned. There was a big project we were working on. This is something else that happened, though. This was once we had the lockdown. One thing that happened was that Men in Black, my baby, turned 20 on April 14th of last year, because it opened in 2000. And this is a original picture from opening year.
Wow.
But I did but it was really nice to I had time to sort of take stock of that. And I had time to go through some of my archives and find some stuff and post some stuff online. I did a little 20th anniversary live stream on my YouTube that's still there if you want to watch it. But I did a bunch of podcasts this year. People asking me on to talk about Men in Black, and when we design, as I've said, the short version of this that I've said to everybody is, you don't design these things for being that old. You really don't. Like you're on to the next thing. And I had this during the live stream, I had this revelation that like the time between now and when the attraction opened is the time between when I was a teenager and the Haunted Mansion opened. What? So it's just great seeing seeing what people love about it and talking about it. So that was a bit of joy in the glum. and even part of that make your own theme park thing, which is another big part of joy for me, the homemade theme park trend. Those were so clever and so great, and I loved seeing them, and it was great to see sort of fan expression. And I did one, of course. I had to do it before anybody else did. So
that girl who kind of started it all, Jess, she blew up with the Ratatouille musical. She created that playbill art for that.
Oh, I didn't realize that was her.
Mm-hmm.
My friend Kevin sings in that. He did Gaston.
Yeah, it's
and wrote
great.
That song. Yeah.
It's fun. Everything's like coming together.
I mean, that's another big point of joy for me this year, even amongst all this, was just watching weird internet creativity happen.
The ad hoc sort of projects that people have been doing have been phenomenal.
Yeah. The democratization of creation this year.
Yeah.
That when nobody has access or money or can build shit or go anywhere, then anybody can be a creator. Like everybody can put stuff out onto the platforms.
Yeah, and like everyone can cook.
Yeah, everyone.
Right. Exactly.
There. That photo I thought we were on, which was like, oh, this is this group, not Men in Black. So I apologize.
That's okay. We jumped ahead.
That's a mad cake, Dave.
There's me turning 50 with a unicorn cake and two very gay cakes, of course. But 50 is a big milestone, and I don't feel it, and I still feel young. So it was nice to celebrate with friends and look forward to, the year. It was a really great send off for me in 2020.
I kind of had the opposite of Dave, largely for two factors. Number one, because of what my partner does. And so the reports he was seeing in the medical and academic literature coming out of China fairly early on, but also the school that my kid goes to has an enormous international exchange student program. And he was friends with a number of students from China whose families were being as communicative with their kids as possible about what was going on and things like that. So, and the school itself also has 2 campuses in China, and those campuses went through shutdown. The Thinkwell Beijing office went through shutdown. And so on a personal level, it well before the end of January, we had my husband is just the side of a prepper, and this year it paid off. Well before the end of January, we had the extra propane tanks for the grill and, 3 months supply of every prescription that we needed, and 50-pound sacks of rice occupying my laundry room and stuff like that. And the Great Wall of toilet paper. And we knew we had access to the data, and because I'm a trained biologist, because my husband is still an actual practicing biologist in the medical field, all we had to do was look at the transmission rates and look at how the counts were going, knowing that those numbers were probably artificially depressed by the authorities in China. And it was like, this is going to get real bad real fast. It's going to hop an ocean and it's going to be terrible. So we were hunkering down. We were getting ready to hunker down. We were prepared for a long haul really, really early.
Yeah, I saw the writing on the wall too, not in a medical science sense like you guys, but I had clients in China in December and January, and they saw what was going on, and then what they did is they came straight back from China to my studio, and then I got very sick a week or 2 later. Very, very sick, the sickest I had ever been. I probably should have gone to the hospital, but I didn't. And I'm convinced I had COVID, even though I had the antibody test last month, and it came back negative, but it was probably, because it was 11 or 12 months, maybe it wasn't, enough. But I started hearing, I had a project, that was supposed to start in January, and the Chinese offices for that project, when all of China, most people don't know, like China just shuts down for Chinese New Year, and in a way that no other country really does, except for maybe France. And
France
they told everybody, huh?
I said, France shuts down for Chinese New Year? I'm kidding.
No, but like they shut down for the summer, you know. But
France.
and then they shut down from Chinese New Year, and then when they told people not to come back to work after Chinese New Year, I knew that it was going to be serious. And then it was like, okay, and then our project was postponed for like almost 3 months, and that became a real problem for me financially, because like I had other things that were supposed to start that got pushed and then eventually canceled, and I would say 90% of my jobs this year were canceled, and I'm extremely grateful and very lucky that the one in China restarted in April of this year, and it has sustained me, you know, through this entire year, thankfully.
Yeah.
Yay.
So
And-
this, sorry, go ahead, Andy. No,
So
go
the
ahead.
moral of the story
And, like-
is you were a sweet summer child.
Yeah. So I was gonna
Meant to
say,
not to get married, and as Cynthia put it, jinxing it for us all.
But like I've been like professionally acclimated to this life my entire career, because like I sit in this room by myself all day every day
Yeah.
working.
Yeah.
So I was like giving advice to people. It's like, well, try to keep a schedule, drink lots of caffeine, get up and walk around, and like get ready, because you're going to experience what I've been experiencing for the last 25 years.
That was Cynthia for us at ThinkWell. And like she said, like our China office had some, you know, early awareness of this. So as a company, the response to it was really great and really responsible and really fast. And but a lot of it was Cynthia sort of sitting everybody down going, y'all. Because she's been working, you know what?
17 and a half years.
Yeah. So
y'all need to get up and actually take a shower in the morning.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, the big bummer for me is that like my studio is right down the street from a Whole Foods, and I used to walk to and from Whole Foods like twice a day for lunch and dinner. And then when they shut down like the whole food service there, it's just like, I don't walk anywhere anymore now. And it's really bad. And
that's actually something we Jason and I, my husband and I, like would find. We found all these walking trails around LA, and most of them, there's a bunch of them by the LA River.
Oh yeah, they have all that art that you saw that you were posting.
Yeah, and I found this really cool art, and we discovered these places that are literally right under our nose. I've been living there for 20 years, and I never knew this was here. And so in a way, we did a little bit of sort of urban spelunking of these things, and just to get some exercise. And the first couple of months we did that pretty regularly. That was nice.
And then Patrick got married.
Well, yeah, I guess.
I was going to say, screw Patrick's nice idea of a timeline deck filled with photos of his life, because Dave brings up something actually really charming that came out of this year, which was lots of people started getting outside in a way that they hadn't previously, going on walking trails and things like that. And then we saw local artists and cultural attractions starting to take advantage of that and doing mini pop-up exhibits and doing, things like putting content, putting art, putting experiences out along walking trails that, otherwise they wouldn't have taken their experiences outside of their four walls.
Yeah.
But bereft of being able to have people come into a museum or come into a gallery, this was a way to still, have people experience art or experience music or what have you. And so that confluence, taking advantage of public space to make art accessible, was actually really, really lovely.
And then Patrick got married.
Well,
Dun dun dun.
Which clearly opened up a hellmouth for all of us.
just so there we go. We got married. It was really lovely. But go back one. I think
you can see the COVID in the air there. Looks just floating around.
Yeah.
You can go
Andy,
back.
can you write that song right now? COVID in the air.
Yeah.
COVID in the air.
Da-da,
Everyone
da-da.
breathe deep. It's COVID in the air.
All right. I was just following the government regulations, man. No, if you go back one, I do want to just say I'm really proud of something that we did arrange. CJ can go back one.
Look at all those people not wearing masks.
It's triggering, like, to be like, oh my gosh, there you go. So this was where we had our rehearsal dinner. We had it at Pizza Rizzo in their wedding reception room with the Muppet. So I was just very proud of that. This is like the time of my life, folks. And I don't like to talk politics, but why not? If you follow me on Twitter, you know what my politics are. like on the night I got married, Bernie Sanders like landslide in Nevada. I was like, all right, we're gonna this is gonna be great. We're gonna run home, and then came back from quarantine and or came back from our honeymoon, and yeah, things have kind of gone awry. But I do want to give a couple shout outs here. Go ahead and bump ahead, CJ, a couple slides. I did have a friend who worked on. You go ahead. That's just honeymoon. I'm sorry. Yeah, we went on a cruise. It was a lot of fun. But my friend worked on Nikki's Runaway Railway, which opened up right like between we got back from the honeymoon, and then Disney was open for like a week before they shut down. And so a big congratulations to like the one ride that opened at Disney over the year, and it's really a great ride.
Like a hot second that it was open and you could go on it.
Yeah, and they gave you COVID as you walked in.
Yeah.
And then I managed to go again with my dad. He loves Mickey Mouse, so shout out to my dad. He was able to go on it and really loved the attraction. So that was really cool that an attraction did open up this year. A DE ticket attraction opened up, which is really cool.
I hear it's fun. Someday I'll get to see
Looks great. Looks great.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, it's so weird thinking about like how you guys over there, like all your parks are closed here. It's a free for all. It's all madness, all that kind of stuff. So Cynthia, you were kind of talking about it earlier, how everyone started to be creative at home. Can you share your story about what you did?
We've got a slide of photos in there. So as I mentioned earlier, we were supposed to go on a Disney cruise. And for those of you who follow me on social media, you know that when I travel, weird shit happens, like, to an extreme extent. And when Nicola Rossini travels, weird shit happens. We were actually supposed to be on a cruise with Nicola Rossini and Ben Froman. That obviously did not happen. And Disney didn't actually cancel the cruise until 3 days beforehand.
Oh, wow.
But it was, we saw the writing on the wall. It was really obvious. And we elected to still take our vacation time. And I told everybody at the office, I'm like, pretend I am on a boat. For all intents and purposes, I'm on a boat. I'm not going to be checking work email. You can't call me for stuff. Bye. And I thought that we were just going to have like family hangout time, gaming in PJs. And my best friend had essentially moved into our house as well, because she lives alone in a condo with not great and reliable electricity and plumbing. So we were like, now is not the time to come stay at our house while we're on the shutdown order from Kansas City, Missouri. And we woke up on embarkation day, and by God, my husband had overnight put signs up all over the house, and designated various areas as the places you would find on a Disney cruise ship. So where our coffee maker is the Cove Cafe. We had Goofy's sports deck. He bought off of Amazon for $100 a foosball table, which still sits there in my kitchen, and 2 inflatable palm trees, which we also still have. And every night after dinner, I'd find a personal navigator for the next day's activities on the bed with towel animals and stuff. One day he notified me that there would be an animal encounter, and it was the St. Louis Zoo doing an online keeper talk with the river otters, which was absolutely adorable. And that is also a great thing that came out of this year, was the number of places that put amazing content online that you typically wouldn't have access to, like the penguin keeper talks and walks at the Shed, or the river otter keeper talks at St. Louis Zoo and what have you. We had character meet and greets like Orange Bird. Orange Bird also provided drinks. But probably the most brain-twisting thing was he actually made us do muster drill. Like, got the audio of the horn, got the script for the Disney muster drill, forced us all to line up at, had a muster station in the foyer of our house and made us do muster drill, which was like, okay. The level of detail, and he's not in themed experience design, the level of detail that he lavished in recreating the Disney cruise experience was charming, if a little homegrown.
Amazing.
Oh, that's a lot of fun.
And a hippo whip.
Amazing.
Well, I want to get back to the Men in Black experience that you did, but we're gonna try to pull it up. Before we go into that, can you, CJ, can you just go to the next slide? I can chat about this a little bit. Cool. So, remember Tiger King, guys?
Wow, man,
that was like 10 years ago, right?
Feels like years ago.
Yeah,
it feels like, that was at least 2 lifetimes ago. Yeah, time is totally a flat circle and a construct.
No, absolutely. I will say so. This actually is an interesting story. I promise I'm interesting. That when the quarantine started happening and we were all locked in, I was like, hey, why don't I start a live stream and just start connecting with people? It's called the Yappy Hour. It's on Facebook. There's still video of it. And my wife and my good friend Brian, we just started live streaming every day at like 5 o'clock, 5:30, had a beer, whatever, and then the format of the show kept getting progressively more official. Like we had, Tiger King Wednesdays, Manic Mondays, Friday we broadcast live from a jacuzzi. I mean, it was a lot of work and out of hand. And I realized, like, I'm spending 2 hours a day on this show, 2 to 3 hours a day. Like, I don't know about this. But I was using this technology that I'm using right now on StreamYard to do it. And it gave me the confidence to then, tweet out, hey, who wants to start a show? Like, Andy joined me. And now we have a whole network. My friends, they had joined. They had joked.
What you do?
How many shows is Patrick going to be involved in by the end of quarantine? And I think the over/under was 5, and I think we're gonna be a lot more than that. Now we're above quarantine, but
I'm proud to have been on the first.
Yeah, you were. Dave Cobb was huge. The Men in Black show we did. It was one of our first, and I think it was April. We're on episode, I don't know, 36, 30 something around there now.
Oh my God.
We'll post that in the comments.
Yeah.
So it was like cool, like get people together, technology. I'm like, okay, I don't know, this is how you do it, and it was very simple. Like, I mean, we were like holding up. At the first ones, we were just like holding up like iPhones next to each other, and then we're like, my friends were like, you got to figure out a software that actually is able to like do live streaming. I don't know what you're doing on your phone, but it all worked out nicely. So, but it was kind of like those were the seeds that led to TETV in a way. So. Big shout out to Brian and Casey Collins, who was our technical producer every day. Like 5 minutes before the show, I'd be like, "Hey, are you going to come on to produce the show?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll do it." So, same Casey that helped build Nikki Runaway Railway. So, anyway, really, it was just goofy. So, CJ, can you nod? Do you have the? Yeah, cool. Yeah, no problem. All right. So, want to set up your what happened here? We have the footage ready to go.
So I like about a week before this, maybe 4 or 5 days before this, we started to see the hashtag homemade theme park stuff hit the web from Jessie, is her name, right? Jessie Siswick.
Jess Siswick, yeah.
Jess Siswick. That the one she did for Soren was so clever and funny, just made me laugh out loud. And my favorite one, if people haven't seen it, is the one of the guy did the Jungle Cruise in his pool.
Yes.
And his golden retriever basically plays all the other characters. Yeah. It's this big goofy golden retriever who's just game for it. It's and he's got it, like it's swimming past him and he's got the gun, bang, scare him off. That was my favorite, and I was like, oh, I can do that, sure. So I spent about, I don't know, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, and grabbed some stuff from around the house and flashlights for lighting, and grabbed any Men in Black memorabilia I had, like some of the stuffed plush, but also just random monsters that we have around the house, and decided to do an abbreviated version of the attraction myself. I even brought in Jason Depew, who some of you may know, and he worked on the attraction. He was actually opening a staff on the attraction when I was there, and I enlisted him to be the Rip Torn character, so he filmed a segment, which I then played in the Eggtron. I cut out an egg-shaped piece of paper and put it around my phone, and then filmed it. Like, it was super like lo-fi, what do they call it? Sweeting, yeah. Right. But it was fun, and I didn't really think much of it, and I put it out there, and people seemed to like it. And the best part was when the Orlando News covered like the phenomenon of it. I was one of the ones they showed, which was very flattering. But, it was as a creator of this stuff, beyond me just doing my own because I wanted to, what I loved was watching other people's sort of translation of what they love about an attraction. Like if they could, it wasn't just about the cleverness of what they had around the house, and you know, they were these big love letters to these attractions in really clever ways that let people who may or may not have creative jobs be super creative to the public, and it was really gratifying to watch. It was really, really lovely.
Oh, that's
and
fantastic.
to pick up on something you said, Dave, a lot of it was really lo-fi. There was no longer this expectation of finish and polish, and it was more the unbridled joy and love of the thing. And people were far less quick to be like, oh, that looks crappy, you know, about something that people were putting out into the world, because you know, we were all in the same boat, and that was really great to see.
I turned my shower into the elevator from the ride, basically. You know,
oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, sure. You can go ahead and play it. It's this is the courtyard in front of my house and in front of my apartment, and I have one of the posters from the attraction that it's a funny story that the poster that you see here for the Universal U is actually in my shower at home, because it was a test print of this fiberglass stuff that they were going to use for the actual posters, and this was the one they tested for UV and scratch resistance and stuff. And when they were done with it, I'm like, thank you, and it's been in my shower ever since. And there you go. You're jumping right. That's it. Here's the elevator, and then you hear Zed, and then the lights change. And it looks like you're going down. That's Jason off camera with a green candy wrapper over the flashlight, doing this on the wall. It was. Then I had two wormy guys, and I put them next to my microwave. As one does. One of those is a prototype. The one on the right, I think, was only one of them made. This was Jason.
It gets me every time. This is like the 100th time I've seen this, and
he's lip syncing to the actual track, which is amazing. And then this is me in a desk chair, and I have those hue lights, and hue will respond to music. So I set it for sort of disco strobe and put on like EDM really loud, and the hue lights went nuts. And then I just filmed myself spinning around with the camera, and that's one of the actual ride guns that they gave us as a thank you present at the end of the job. And then this is outside my patio with one of those wormy guys. Jason's puppeting. So it was, and this took me literally 90 minutes maybe to film all the footage, and maybe another hour to 45 minutes to stitch it all together. So it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
That was like the director's commentary. We'll send that back to you, and you can cut it over there.
But you know, that's April, and that feels like it was a lifetime ago.
Absolutely.
We're all so full of trauma at the moment. It just feels like forever and ever and ever ago.
Time's an illusion, my friends.
It's a flat circle. Every day is a day and why.
Well, one thing that I really think is interesting, and you already talked about it, but just that bringing things back to a child in a way, like a child's beginner's mind of imagination, where like, you know,
exactly.
I grab this cat dog, and now, you know, it's not showing very well. Now it can be, it's my animatronic in an attraction. And that's so important to what we do, is trying to get all the gobbledygook and other things that we've seen around the world and try to do our own things with it. It's really cool. And it also reminded me of just when I was a kid, I used to build Legos and Kinects, and I recreated Fantasmic out of Legos, water guns in the living room. Like we had little pools, all sorts of stuff. My sister's watching, they would remember. It was a lot of fun. Just like, I just love doing that, recreating what you saw. But well, you know what I mean?
Like, I mean, play is one of the earliest languages we learn, right? And when we're devoid of playmates, when you were a kid, when there was nobody to play with outside, what did you do? You went to your room and you did it yourself. And this is like that expression writ large, you know?
Yeah.
Well, in the early days, you know, Dave, you mentioned trauma. another really lovely thing that we saw this year was people using their platform in a way that they might not have otherwise. Laura Benatti's a great example of that, because by late March, thousands upon thousands of high schools across the country had canceled their spring shows. And for graduating seniors, senior show, spring show, it's a huge thing. It's a rite of passage. The kids had already been rehearsing for months by that point. And so there's this huge sense of loss. And as we all know, theater kids are completely sanguine and not emotional at all about stuff. So it was all handled in stride, and there was no emotional fallout from those cancellations whatsoever. And Laura Benatti, with her tremendously huge platform, acknowledged that this sucks and encouraged teenagers, if you were in a show that got canceled, film yourself singing, post it, tag me in it, and put the hashtag Sunshine Songs on it. And the response was amazing. And the outpouring of support that these kids gave to each other, that other professionals in theater and film and television and music coming in and commenting on these videos and giving the kids support and letting them feel seen and heard and like they had still accomplished something even when their production had been canceled was really, really lovely. And we've seen that time and time again with people in positions where they have a platform, have been giving of their time, have utilized their platforms to elevate other voices, and help other people find an outlet in a really traumatizing period of time.
No, absolutely. 100%. I will just say that, when we look back, Cynthia, you've worked from home a long time. So, and Andy, you've also worked from home or your own area isolated.
Welcome to our shitty world, y'all.
Yeah. I actually, it's very odd. It's a mixed bag of emotions with working from home. But one thing that we can all agree on is how amazing it is to be around our dogs. And we know they love it, and the dogs are there. CJ, go ahead and put up a photo of my dogs, King Louie and Blue.
How many of us on this actually own dogs?
I think just Patrick.
Yes, what I was thinking.
Well, fair enough.
Thanks for rubbing it in.
I'm sorry. All right.
No, I've been joking all year with my friends, with my husband, that my dog ovaries are vibrating. My dovaries, as Jason calls it. There's a dog in our future because I just can't get enough of my friends' dogs because they're all posting cute photos of them hanging out together.
So very inspiring. There you go.
Look at that.
I don't know what that comment was for. It's probably for something else. But yeah, adorable. It's nice to reconnect. I only have fur babies, but I mean, Cynthia, you also talked about being able to connect with your youngling as well.
My 6'4" youngling, yes.
No,
I think fighting over the last cup of coffee is a more accurate statement with my youngling.
So like let's just jog our memories a bit. Like right in this time that was going on, we're gonna go in lockdown and maybe get out of this in a month, 6 weeks. I mean, I know Cynthia's probably like, oh yeah, that was never gonna happen. I don't know, whatever the case may be. But we were, like early quarantine days, we're like, all right, we're locked in. I got, here, there, this is okay. We're going to make it through this. And then everything just got all murky.
I figured we were in went for lunch with two friends right before the cheese fully slid off the cracker. One friend is a doctor. The other one, very smart woman, but absolutely no science, medical knowledge at all whatsoever. And she very innocently asked the two of us, so how long do you think this is going to, how long are things going to be weird for? And the other woman and I both looked at one another, looked at her and went, 18 months. We're like, lockdown won't last 18 months, but shit's not going to be normal for at least 18 months. And the other friend was like, you're kidding me. Lockdowns only get people are talking lockdowns for 4 weeks. We're like, yeah, no, it's not going to work. Now, I severely underestimated how badly it was not going to work because I underestimated how disparate the response was going to be and how underwhelming compliance was going to be. I did not count on the "my freedoms" response nearly as much as I have to be able to make an informed call as to how long things are going to drag on for. But I genuinely thought we had a shot at things potentially returning to some semblance of normal Q1 this year. I figured last year was going to be pretty much. I was like, okay, if we all do the right thing, people might be able to have small Christmases together.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And speaking of, like, in the vein of using our platforms, like, you know, I've said it before a couple of times this year on my Twitter, like, any people out there in the theme park world who enjoy following me on social media who are anti-maskers or don't believe this stuff or don't listen to the science or say that it's all a hoax, just unfollow me now, because we're never going to get along. You're not my people at all. And I'm angry at all of you, anybody who thinks that way, because it's just opposite of common sense. Wear your damn mask.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I remember that was the day that I unfollowed you.
Well, I mean, you know, this is the brighter side of 2020. So, like, along the lines of science, let's talk about the incredible, unprecedented effort to create a vaccine for this thing that I would have never. That, you know, of all the things that we would have predicted, I would never have predicted that we would have actually had more than one actual approved, viable, effective vaccines before the end of the year. I mean,
can I get on in that vein? Can I get on a soapbox for a moment?
Oh, please do. That's why you're here.
Viewers at home, who, if you're in themed entertainment, the likelihood is you're not a hardcore biology person. What you're seeing right now, the fact that we have multiple vaccines that work, and that don't have a slew of horrible side effects for a lot of people. They don't. They are safe. They are effective. The reason you're seeing that, the reason we're at this point, is basic science research. It is the funding that governments give to universities and thousands of researchers trying to figure out the basics of virology, of molecular genetics. That all laid the groundwork to be able to rapidly develop an mRNA vaccine. Without that work, without the kind of work that some politicians look at the grant applications and literally make lists of, this is wasteful of taxpayer money. No, all of that basic science research led to this moment. When you vote in future, look at the stances of the candidates on funding for the NIH, funding for the NSF, funding to university education, state funding for state universities. All of it contributes to us having a hope in hell of having the ability to hug people this year.
Preach.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I wanted to say, speaking of vaccines, CJ, come on the show. Let's talk to you for a moment.
Yeah, CJ, our producer.
Come on, CJ.
To give a little background, he works at the UCLA COVID testing center. Tell us about that, CJ.
Yeah, so I actually work at the VA parking lot with CORE, the community organized relief effort in Los Angeles that's running a whole bunch of the COVID testing sites, the drive-through testing sites. That's where I spend my day job from 8 to 4. And we've actually started rolling out the vaccine. So I got my first dose of the vaccine on last Wednesday. And
cool.
I'm absolutely amazed at how many people don't want to get the vaccine. Even in our staff, there's a lot of people who don't want to, just because of how much misinformation or untested research there is about it. But on a first-hand account, I had barely any effects. My arm was a little bit sore, like a normal vaccine. And from all my other coworkers who have been getting it over the past week, it's all pretty much the same. So I highly recommend it when it comes out.
What reasons are your coworkers who choose not to get the vaccine giving? Are they giving specific reasons, or they're just like, no?
It's a pretty personal topic, so a lot of people kind of just say, I'm not interested. And it's a sort of heated topic, so we don't broach the conversations a lot, but a lot of it is just personal. Either their lifestyle is not going to change a whole ton if they get the vaccine right now, because everything's going to be shut down to July. So in my opinion, there's not a whole lot of societal pressure to get the vaccine currently until it becomes widely available. I think once it's widely available, they'll all jump in and it starts to become required.
I had a conversation with somebody over the holidays, and they used words like believe. I don't believe this or that about the vaccine. And I was just like, it's funny you use that word, because science exists whether you believe in it or not. And there is mountains and mountains of scientific evidence that these vaccines work, and that the only reason you don't have polio right now is because of vaccines, or yellow fever, or any number of things that cholera we get vaccinated for, as children, and you have to have to go to school in this country. And I just really confronted them with that, and and they just kind of like, oh well, they just sort of stopped talking about it.
I think it's really a shame.
They were ashamed.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a personal thing. I think what's so, I hear it from both sides of people where they're like, oh, I don't trust that this administration approved this, and I'm like, well, they approved it in Europe, and they have nothing to do with that guy. So maybe just don't, don't worry about
that. It's this toxic blend of American exceptionalism and which is mostly a myth now, and and people, fine, call me anti-patriotic for that BS, but you know what? We're all citizens of the world first and foremost. We're human beings. There's not some weird, conspiracy globally that this is happening, and other countries are rolling out the vaccine, whether you like it or not. And the only way we're going to get to herd immunity is if enough people are vaccinated. Herd immunity doesn't just happen on its own. And so I just posted a thing in our private chat. You should post to the comments. It's a really great article. It's an amazing deep dive on how the vaccine was fast-tracked and why it's worth trusting. And I am not a scientist. Most of my science I know through news or people like Cynthia who tell me in sixth grade terms. And but this,
like I'm 5.
But again, it's an empathy thing. This is about having giving some sort of semblance of two craps about the people next to you or anybody else in the world. And anybody who doesn't, to me, is just selfish. It's selfish and arrogant. And I know it's a personal choice. I don't disagree with you, CJ, but my response, especially if people are working in healthcare, they should be fired. So I'm sorry to turn this into a political platform, but
you're doing such a great job at talking about the positives of 2020. Such a great job. So good.
One thing that's weird is that I don't think it's weird. I don't know if this is a political thing. I think it's a little bit different. Like maybe it's a moral thing or a worry thing. Our industry's been devastated. The live event industry's been devastated. Theaters can't. Oh, I hate the big screen. Theaters been canceled. It's been a really tough year, and I think that we need to do everything we can to mitigate it. And I know that everyone has different lifestyles, different needs, and all that. And we kind of snap cut to right now. Been back in the it was March or June, not March, pardon me. It was like April, May. Everyone was debating, okay, now we need to back open. We need to get back open. And the cases weren't dropping. We didn't beat anything. We just decided, okay, we mismanaged this. So let's go ahead and just reopen. And
we're going to call the group project over and let's move on to the next unit. No.
And I saw that. I saw the pictures and footage of the parks in Florida over the holidays, and it was just, it made my skin crawl. And you have this argument within the fandom who's like arguing why shouldn't Disney open and Disneyland open in California. And the bottom line is, the arguments that, oh, they're not seeing any cases coming out of Walt Disney World. Well, that's
Very
conjecture at best. Like there's no
that is conjecture. Yeah, that is absolutely conjecture at best because we don't have contact tracing.
There's no contact tracing. No. People who go to Disney World go back to their home state. So there's no way to track it unless they're doing contact tracing, and they're not. So you can't say that the parks are doing it safely in Florida. You just can't.
Well, Cynthia, I mean, you had a fun reply to a tweet about how you could get everybody to take the vaccine if it was required to go to the Disney theme parks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, way back in March, I was having a conversation with somebody because it was clear that this was not going to be a ride it out scenario. That this is so infectious, and that was before the new variant has emerged, within the past couple of weeks. But back in March, it was like, okay, this is so infectious, and its effects are so devastating. This is a disease that we have to develop a vaccine against. But we have seen vaccine uptake and compliance really degrade in this country. Thank you, Andrew Wakefield, and Fox News. And sorry if there are any Fox News watchers out there, but misinformation central when it comes to vaccines. And so we were already seeing, we saw measles outbreaks. There was a measles outbreak that got traced to Disneyland, for God's sake, a couple of years ago. And so, I also was like, okay, people are not going to run out and get the vaccine when it becomes available because people already QQ about getting a flu shot. Like they're going to suddenly be like, you know what? I was wrong. Let's get this vaccine. But if we start thinking about places that can regulate who gets in, I was like, man, it would be one hell of an outcome if it's Disney saying, you have to show proof of vaccination to buy a ticket to come in. They're a private entity. They're not a public space in the true sense of the word public. If it's people's desire to go places and do things that accomplishes what public health efforts in the federal government haven't been able to for the past 15 years kind of thing. And it's like my desire to go to Haunted Mansion is going to get me to actually go get a flu shot, go get a COVID shot kind of thing. That would be one hell of an outcome if corporations achieve what our government couldn't.
Sorry, I'm not laughing at you, Cynthia. I'm laughing at the bug that Patrick put in the corner. That's funny. Yeah, I mean, I think that would be incredible. And Qantas is the Australian airline is going to require vaccines to fly on their airline when they come back for international flights. It's like, like you said, private entities can do that, and I think that they should.
Yeah. And if you don't when I saw that news, not like Qantas flies on a lot of routes that I'm likely to have to fly on for work, but if I have a choice for what airline I'm going to be on, and it's an airline that has good compliance and a requirement, and great handling and a requirement for a vaccine versus one that's like, we're going to pack you in like cattle and screw it if you don't have a vaccine. Guess which one I'm going to go on?
Yeah. I will say it's very interesting you mentioned this. On Twitter, this was a big Twitter year for me. I didn't put it in here, but I had a viral tweet with Shakira that happened during the Super Bowl.
Yeah, your Shakira tweet was way better to go viral over a Shakira tweet than over a nematode tweet like I did.
yeah. Cynthia and I have swapped stories about that. But on Twitter, I was, I kind of was like, I'm going to actually do Twitter this year and do it for theme parks and not just posting, my political stuff. So I kind of did that really great. And I was tweeting saying Disney should be, temperature checks, mask requirement in Florida at their parks when they reopen. They reopen. And they hadn't announced it yet. And I was really worried they weren't going to do temperature checks. So I thought that was going to at least set the tone a little bit. And while, these things aren't everything, they say this is the way to mitigate things. And so I was pleased to hear that when they did that, when they announced that they were doing the safety protocols. And we're obviously in a bit of a different, I'm in Florida, and I've been to the parks before. I've been to the limited capacity, and there was actually a lot of debate in our house leading up to when we went to say, how we're going to feel, is it weird morally or whatever speaking. And, we decided to go. And I will say that there was everyone's personal safety is up to their own choice. But our group's thing was like, we do not want to be in enclosed spaces around the same people for prolonged periods of time, or without mask on, of course. Without mask, no can do. And those are kind of our thoughts. So we eased into it and said, I think the first thing we did was we went to Epcot, right? Or and it's a ghost town. This was the early days. There was like nobody there. We would just go, re-ride whatever we wanted to. But I will say, in our first time, like, it was a lot of debate about whether or not we were going to go on test track or not. We're going to like, I don't know, how's they going to feel about that? We're in a space. We had it's very personal. We had a lot of choices or a lot of thoughts about it. And even the most time we've been recently, we kind of do our own thing where we stay, with certain attractions. We make sure we have plenty of distance in the queues, which is, I think, the biggest challenge they have now is just people that are families that are spread out in the queues. We take up several, we space our individual group out. We just do what we can to feel better about it. Cause I don't, wearing a heavy duty mask and all that, it's what we've done. And so it created this weird time just in, April, May, June of like, well, which businesses are opening, which are not. And that whole debate was very interesting. Like, well, if the gym is open or whatever's open, why wouldn't this be open and this and that? And I honestly will say that when the government did not come in and say we're going to take over 80% of your payroll for you to stay home for these businesses, it really threw quite a wrench in the works for businesses because there was very little government support, and it just kind of created a disaster. I don't have a solution for, hey, we can't open or we're closed, and so I just laid off my staff in America. There's no real solution to that.
Right. I was having a conversation with folks earlier today. Part of the reasons that lockdown didn't work was number one, we had so many exemptions, but number two, it was not financially viable for people to stay home. Unlike other countries that came up with a plan that literally gave people money to stay the fuck home and small business owners wouldn't go under, kind of thing. We didn't have that. And so economically, a lot of people couldn't. Out of that.
Greatest country in the world. The New York Times the other day had it's one of those articles that if you're a foodie like me, it was just like, oh, and it was all the restaurants we've lost. The big names. Obviously it wasn't all of them because that would be the entire newspaper for several days running. But it was it was this coast to coast, just gut wrenching list of restaurants. And one of my favorite hometown restaurants was on there, Blue Stem here in Kansas City. Colby and Megan Geralt's have two other restaurants, Ryan La Plaza and Ryan Leewood down here by us. But Blue Stem was their original restaurant here. It was their flagship, and it's gone now. They made the decision on their own. But it was still a really, really hard decision to make. But at the same time, we're seeing people like them make really creative, inventive choices. Kansas has only recently come out of the Stone Ages in terms of liquor laws, for instance. But now I can pick up pre-mixed batches of cocktails to go from several of my favorite restaurants and lovely little boutique sort of bars and speakeasies around here. And our local, really, really, really fantastic distiller, J. Rieger Distillery. Their whiskey is amazing. If you have not tried it, you should. They are doing an online whiskey tasting this Thursday. You buy the kit with a bunch of different little mini bottles. I'm so excited. And they're doing a Zoom tasting. And the Belfry, which is a fantastic bourbon bar here in town, run by Selena Teo, has been doing mixology classes and bourbon, like virtual bourbon tastings and things like that. And, we see it expanding out of restaurants and with magic shows where they send the kit of things to you. The Geffen. Yeah. It was the Geffen, right?
Oh, yeah. The Geffen Stayhouse. It's a guy named Helder Guimarães, I think his name is, and he's a magician. And it was one of the most miraculous things I've ever seen, COVID or not, because they sent you this box and it said, do not open till the night of your performance. You had a scheduled evening performance on a certain date, just like a real show. And when you logged into Zoom, there's about 25 other people in the grid that all had tickets. And he proceeds to, in the best magician style, sort of tell this story. And it's really moving and it involves his family and his history. And with that, there were things in the box that he would tell you to do. And there was cards and other things in it. And there's a few moments where he did a gag or a trick that affected something in the room with me or with another guest that I literally was like, this man is a witch. Like, burn him at the stake. How does he do that? And I'm a fairly aware guy when it comes to magic. Like I know I've worked with magicians. I sort of know what the basics of most card forces and things are. And there were things that I just could not reverse engineer in my head. And it was amazing. And so that was like, we did that in, I think, April. And it was April and May. And it was like one of the moments where I went, maybe we'll get some really interesting art out of this. And that was probably the best example.
So, and what's really lovely is it's not limited to places that have a budget, if you will, like the Geffen, where production values is something like the Geffen. You know, it can be a restaurant that's doing it on their own. My kids' high school, they, for $1,000, got enough green screen sheets and clips and plug-in like USB lights and decent microphones that every kid who got cast in the fall musical got sent home with a bag of this stuff, and they did the musical entirely over Zoom. And you know, it's not that hard. You just need to, you know, figure out you just need to crack the nut, kind of thing. And so the ways that people can engage with one another, kits for magic shows, kits for whiskey tastings, cooking kits, you know, Sir Latab's got into that game as well. It's been the explosion of those kinds of opportunities. I think we're going to see a lot of, oh, thank God I can be back out in public spaces with people and I can hug my friends and actually sit at a bar and have a drink. But I also think that we're going to see some really cool opportunities persist at home. Like for $50, me and a couple of friends can have a personal encounter with a penguin at the Shed Aquarium, even though I don't live in Chicago, and talk with the trainer and, you know, have an experience that I otherwise wouldn't. I don't think those things are going to evaporate once the worst of this is over.
Yeah, I mean, I follow the Hearst Castle on Facebook, and they have been doing daily deep dive tours into their collections and rooms and areas that you would never, ever be able to go to, even on their half dozen tours that they have that you can take. But it has been phenomenal. It's been like one of my favorite things about the quarantine is that, you know, they're still all up there on the hill, just like videoing each other, giving these incredibly detailed tours about the tapestries and the sculptures and the gardens and the restoration and the furniture. And it's like super nerdy kind of stuff like that, you know, like architecture stuff and interior design stuff that I'm super nerdy about. You know, even though I do music, I did study architecture and I'm a discerning consumer of it. And but that has been really, really great. And I think that tees up Patrick to tee up the other thing. You're muted, Patrick.
Muted. We need t-shirts that say you're muted.
For the day now.
Hey, is this thing on? So then that translated to themed entertainment. So it was very interesting things that happened in our communities out here is everyone's on Zoom now. So you can start doing virtual happy hours with people across the globe. And it wasn't even a big deal. It was just like, hey, why don't we grab a this, grab a that, talk, let's get together. I started reaching out to all sorts of people that I haven't done in a while, or kind of knew, kind of wanted to get to know more. Like, hey, I saw plenty of LinkedIn notes. Say, hey, like, I know you exist. I'm Patrick. Something along those lines. Like, why don't we chat and just get to know each other? And then I started getting, along with the, sorry, I got distracted with the message on the side. I started mentoring a group, Kyle Branch and a few of his folks, on an episode that was called that we actually broadcast what the ending product was. And I started doing that in June. Started doing outreach, diversity outreach, all sorts of great things. And and I was part of the STEP project for just a little bit, which is the Summer Student good project. I don't know the acronym by heart. Summer Student Entertainment Project. But they created a theme park, which was really great effort, and it was like 90 people, humongous. And basically, it was like, okay, this is a really cool program. Met somebody named Sochi, who's really an awesome person and out on the West Coast. And she's like, you need to meet Morgane Kiesling because she's like the West Coast version of you. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's interesting. And we had like a happy hour lunch talk, and next thing you know, we were she had talked to me about how she wanted to do an intensive workshop with people where they could work on a project because she had done that at a Nickelodeon one, and it really inspired her. And I'm like, oh yeah, cool. Well, I've done this little thing, I've done that little thing. And she's like, I got Adam Bizark. Hey Kyle.
Hi, Kyle. Yay.
I have Adam Bizark.
My team. Kyle was on my team.
He was. Yeah, he was. No. Kyle.
All right, sorry. Go ahead.
No. It's great. It's no problem. And so we kind of, Adam Bizark, myself, and Morgane kind of founded this little thing, which turned out to be the great thing with Morgane, it's like, it's going to be 3 of us. And then I talked to her and it's like, okay, it's going to be 8 people, 8 mentors. They're all locked in. I sent you a message, Dave, to join that. You were a part of it too.
Yeah.
Launched the TEC workshop series, which was like that 3-week project that was insane. And then it launched a whole organization, like a trade school. She launched a trade school overnight. Which is really, really incredible, and he's been a part of that.
That was one of the top 3 highlights of my year. Was for the very first time in my entire life teaching a class. I've never taught anything to anyone ever before, like on purpose. And
welcome to academia.
And it was an amazing experience. I was a little trepidatious about it in the beginning, like, what's this going to be like? Is anybody going to care about what I have to say? I had no expectations at all. And Morgane and Spencer, her husband, who is also an educator, music educator, actually, really helped me a lot and gave me a lot of confidence and guidance. And I can't even, I will probably get emotional if I talk too much about how inspired I was by I had 20 students, and each and every one of them was an incredible inspiration. I enjoyed every single class that we had together. And by the way, I taught music and sound in theme entertainment, sort of like a 101 kind of class of like how to music and sound for theme parks and how it works and how it all works together and works with design and experience and everything. And our final project that I assigned the students was to replace audio of an attraction, which is based on a fun thing that Dave and Patrick and I did years and years ago with an organization called Cipasur. Keith Rector started. And man, thanks, Nate. And everybody just knocked it out of the park. And I would say better than half of them had never, ever edited anything before, let alone music or sound effects or dialogue or anything like that. And they just, everybody was great. And it was just an incredible inspiration. And I can't wait to do it again.
I feel exactly the same way. That was one of the most inspiring things I did all year. I was in a different thing that Andy was doing. It wasn't so much teaching a class. We were doing an intensive workshop that for these students that are coming out of school that didn't have internships to go to like Morgane did at Nickelodeon, to do some attraction design. And so it was really fun. They all picked like a genre and an attraction type out of a hat, and they were assigned a mentor. And like Andy, I've never really taught a class before, but it's a very collaborative industry. So, I sort of made it up as I went along, faked it till I made it. And
yeah, me too.
But I knew I couldn't treat it like I was a coworker. I don't want to direct the project. I'm more like the client, which is just giving them guide rails. But I had the most amazing team that had one of the more challenging combinations of genre and attraction type, and watching them find their aha moments and watching them all get real wide and like excitedly start talking over each other. And then, later on when they started refining and having each one of them in very polished ways pitch sections of the attraction. Like Kyle's on here, he'll tell you, like they made me cry in their last pitch to me before we showed to the rest of the team, because it came from the right place. They found their aha moments in emotion and in character, and not just special effects or thrill or wow. There's wow in it. They had plenty of that, but they also found the heart of the show. And it was so wonderful to watch that process happen. And it reminded me of being back at work. It reminded me of that kind of stuff and doing it with my friends. So I got as much out of it as they did. It was very, very gratifying.
Speaking as one of the people who came in as like the, special industry guest star to sit there and critique in the final presentations, seeing what Morgan and others had come together to create for people who otherwise would have nowhere to go in this industry, would have no opportunity to network, or no obvious opportunity to network, and who we would risk losing them from the industry before they even ever really got a chance to be in the industry. Seeing how many people benefited from that, and just seeing the jaw-dropping caliber of what the participants produced. It was like, okay, number one, the kids are all right. Number two, wow, the industry isn't completely full of self-absorbed assholes. Folks are actually willing to give of their time. And over and over and over again, over the course of the year, I've been blown away by how much people are helping one another. Whether it's tech use or other projects, one of which I'm sure Patrick will bring up in a little bit, or things like the Museum Workers Relief Fund, spearheaded by Museum Workers Speak, or Fair Jobs museums in the UK, or even cast member pantry. Just seeing people help one another and not be this sort of vicious, there are very few jobs out there, I'm going to scramble for what I can get and screw everybody else. It's been really, really good to see the industry, come together in many ways, but it's also been really, on the museum side of things, it's been really, in particular, it's been really good to see folks speak up in terms of accountability. We've talked a lot the past hour and 20 minutes about COVID. There's an elephant in the corner, and that's racial justice and BLM. That was last year too. End of May really got rocking. And sure, there was an absolute burst of performative wokeness in the wake. But seeing how many changes have taken place, are taking place, efforts that are being undertaken, the fact that people are having conversations now, goodbye Song of the South and Splash Mountain, you all know how I feel about that. Actual D&I committee at the TEA, ASTC completely scrapping, the Association of Science and Technology Centers, pardon me, ASTC completely scrapping their already planned and set conference schedule for their fall conference and doing an all-new call for sessions. And the sessions had to address the economic, the operational, the emotional, the physical impacts of COVID and BLM and anti-racism work and or, kind of thing. And, that was not going to be a conference that was like business as usual. And the amount of work that is happening as a result, and how I actually have hope this time that it might not all just revert back to comfortable, polite, systemic racism when the dust settles. I think we finally hit a groundswell moment where there is no fully going back to the way it was.
I think that's probably one of the best things to come out of 2022 is that things just aren't going to go, things like that aren't going to go back to the way they were. And I think that that's incredibly important. I mean, and I know here at TETV, like with all the new shows and all the staff that, we that we need to get all that running, is, one of the things that Patrick and I wanted from the very beginning was diversity requirements. It can't just be two straight white guys doing every show, or, or,
well, it can be. We call that Newsmax.
Or the or even behind the scenes, it's been very important to us from the very beginning that we have a wide representation of races and genders and non-conforming people, and like anything, it's open to everyone.
If people haven't seen Phil Hedema's speech from a couple of years ago when he got his Lifetime Achievement Award from the Theas, seek it out, because he ends on a note of that is so perfectly put, which is, we create stories for a global audience. The people creating these stories need to reflect that audience, period. Mm-hmm. And it was such a great early wake-up call for me. Cynthia will tell you, like, I'm a 50-year-old white guy. I had blinders on, just like a lot of people. And when you really look at the history of this industry, we have a lot of industries, the diversity's been a problem. And what we know from being in the industry and seeing students at things like tech workshops, having friends in the huge staffing at some of the big park companies creating stuff, there's tons of talent out there, and we need to elevate that talent. And it is our job as people with a platform and seniority in this industry to amplify those voices as much as we can.
100%. Yeah. I Cynthia and I are kind of on a journey together on this, which is really great. Stuff in the works for the industry, but also, the stuff that I've been working on and being on a personal journey throughout the year about diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility. I would have considered myself a colorblind person. Everything's okay, or maybe it's, I don't know what to do. Like, how do I do it when I go to a TEA event and everyone is everyone's white, and I don't know how to find people. Very naively saying these things, but I think they're questions that people have when they don't even know where to start their journey for it. And we've had episodes in the past where we've covered it extensively throughout very early on and throughout the years. And being able to use the programming that we have here, or at least the previous shows, into how we're gonna do things. So very early on, the show started with myself and Andy, and at this point, we started the network, so we're the only show that's going to do that. But for So You're About to Graduate College, myself, Kelly, and Dave started the show. Really fantastic team. And okay, we have 3 white people on the show now. So we immediately started to do revolving guests and try to bring new perspectives. And then I just stopped being on the show entirely because I wanted to have other people have the opportunity to have their voice and to start getting themselves asking questions, get themselves out there. And it's been really an amazing thing to be able to do that and have so many amazing volunteers that are wanting to be involved in these projects that are out there. It's really fun. It's really great. I see it in real time. I see it happening where you have better perspectives in the room, and it just makes everything so better. Even something as launching a network, which maybe is not themed entertainment, but it is entertainment related. It's really important, and I'm really happy to be able to do that, at least here at TETV. Really great point, Cynthia, and it's not going to change here at TETV. It's just going to get even more. There's going to be more and more content related to sustaining this discussion and really highlighting a lot of amazing issues that need to be conquered.
Yeah, I'm not going to let y'all slack on that.
Please don't. Please don't.
Well, so one thing we talked about, which we need to mention, was after Summer Entertainment Project, the TC Workshop Series. Alex Kaplan, who's a really great young professional, posted on LinkedIn, "Hey, I'm starting a group project. Who wants to do something?" And then I said, "Hey, I'd be happy to kind of help out, maybe gather some mentors." And that led into a Magathon, which was a very extensive, grueling process that everybody on this call was a part of. We wrapped it up last year. Man, I mean, it was a really. I think back and I think of like the 3 weeks of work that people had to do the tech workshop series, which I think is really important. The ton And then we were like, let's do a theme park design. That'll be fine. And we'll do it in this, then that. Okay, let's see how it goes. And we had this idea of we're going to create it just like you would a studio. Of we're going to throw curveballs at them. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. It's going to be great. And then just bringing everybody together was enough to create as much just challenges. And it was really quite a remarkable project. And that was put together. I will say, TJ, I met you through the Imagine-a-thon challenge. Why don't you come on and just give yourself a little taste of how it was for you?
Yeah. The Imagine-a-thon challenge was so much of what I think Dave was talking about for me that the TCW workshop series was for a lot of people. Was there wasn't a lot of positions out there in the industry during COVID to go try to learn and try to show people what you could do and network with people. And so I luckily messaged Alex Kaplan when she made her historic LinkedIn post asking for a small portfolio project with 4 to 5 people and got roped into this beast of a project and learned a ton from so many people in industry, so many just offhand comments that I think a lot of people pay for masters for. And so I'm extremely thankful of all those comments and all that time from everyone.
Unfortunately, CJ had to deal with a total seagull of a mentor who would just like fly in and shit all over everything and then fly away, and it just really, really sucked.
Yeah, Dave Cobb not commenting about it.
No, I was one of his 2 mentors on the 2 coaches on the last half of the project. I'm so sorry, dude. I'd be like, this is great except for all of these things. It was like, you got the true client experience from me.
Yeah. But even there, it's like I really admire you guys for trying this again in a larger sense than the first workshop. Imagine-a-thon was like, take that idea and go and turn it up to a 12. And it just the fact that all of us were so eager to keep those gears running was a big part of my year, right? It was a big part of, like, if people don't know, I'm also on the board of the TA awards committee, and I was the chair this past year, and we kept going with that. Everybody sort of unanimously said that, like, we need to keep this going, and we kept the awards process going, and they had the online, because we couldn't have the actual case study day, so we did it all online, and I got to do my park, so I got to present it. It was just, we wanted to continue doing what we do, no matter what that was. And I really admire our industry for that, because we were, in a lot of ways, hit the hardest. Entertainment in general was hit the hardest for so many people. And so it was nice to see that fire still burning. You know what I mean?
And I think you bring up the online TEA case studies. Yeah, obviously TechUs and Imagine-a-thon, those are capacity limited. You can serve only so many people in those.
Right.
But one really good thing that came out of this year was, so long as you have stable internet access, which I realize is a barrier to entry for many. I am in no way saying that these things are completely accessible, but we saw access to people and to professional development increase because everything had to go online. Those case studies, the number of people who were watching them and the way that they could participate in the chat and the real give and take of that was radically different than the 400 people who could afford the ticket to be in the ballroom at the Disneyland Resort Hotel kind of thing. ASTC with their all online conference, the pricing of that changed dramatically. You didn't have to fly. You didn't have to pay for 4 nights of hotel. You didn't have to pay for food. And they brought the overall ticket price of the conference down and offered, are you really screwed? Because wow, is the museum sector screwed right now? $25, kind of thing, and you're in. And typically, you wouldn't be able to do that. I went to the American Association of State and Local History conference, for the first time, because it wasn't a business trip. It wasn't a multi-$100 ticket to get in. It was $75. And history curation and museums, that's generally not something I get to get real deep into. It's not my forte. And so it was a huge professional development opportunity for me. And so a lot of the artificial barriers of place and position within a company who's important enough to go to an event or go to a conference, that's gone now. And I really, really hope that in future, many of these conferences find a way to at least remain hybrid, because I do like increasing the access to stuff that you have to be able to be away from your job for 4 days to go to this conference and be important enough for your job to support the travel cost. I hate that being a barrier, and I like more people having access. But I also like the amount of networking events and stuff that are going on through the TEA that are giving people more contact and more access without, can you afford to go to IAPA and go to the party? Great. To all of the, in particular, Imagithon participants who friended me on LinkedIn or emailed me and asked for like time for coffee and stuff like that, I'm really sorry. I unplugged for 2 weeks. I swear to God, I'll get back to you all.
Yeah, I just put my on auto reply on. No, they've had enough of me. No, I mean I completely agree, and really, this is how TETV was able to become possible. Like it's never even been a hey, stare in front of your computer and watch people talk for 4 hours or not 4 hours or 1.5 hours and like actually be engaged or have it be tuned in and tuned out. Like it's quite a new world we're living in, and it wouldn't have been possible. I would not have been able to collaborate with Dave Cobb and Cynthia Sharpe and Andy on the Imagithon Challenge and be in a room just kind of talking and things like that. We all, if you're in a company for a long time, you start to work in like almost like these little mini silos, and being able to hear Cynthia's feedback and Dave's feedbacks and Andy's feedback and all the other mentors that were part of all the projects that I've been a part of. It's like, it's really rewarding and really cool, for lack of a better word, to hear all these different experiences, so that it's not just the same people that we're working with day in and day out. It was really quite a pleasure to do it, and really, really very rewarding amongst all the other chaos. It was very rewarding.
I'd 100% agree with that. It was, I'd never been a part of anything like this before, and, never had imagined that I would, or that it would be possible. And, the friends that I've made and the people, the quality of people that I get to work with every day is just an incredible gift that I'm very, very grateful for.
Oh, well, we have a few more minutes on the show on the shot clock here. We want to go back to our families and spouses or anything. Andy, we have a Christmas photo here.
Oh, well, yeah, that's at my house. That's the mountains of Burbankia, as we call it, which is it's nine Christmas trees. So my housemate built a parade float like 3 or 4 years ago for the Seal Beach Christmas parade, and they recreated the float from the Ferris Bueller's Day Off with the Alpine was the Oktoberfest, and he had all these trees left over, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do something with these trees. And every year I do something with the trees, and this year it's like more elevated, and I because there's not a lot going on, I had a lot of time to stack up boxes and really go all out with this year. And it's really fun, and it's been very festive and nice to have in the house, even though we don't really celebrate Christmas in the true sense.
I saw it with my own 2 eyes, and it was magical.
You gave me the best compliment. You said it's like a department store display.
It did. Aww. Yeah. I walked in and it was like gimbals. It was great.
It was like being in Marshall Fields in the 1960s.
Yeah, the 60s, right?
Perfection.
Somebody came by and squirted me with perfume.
So, actually being continuing with what Andy was saying and being on topic for the show, we saw it was like by Halloween, people had really started to crack the nut on how do we do things in meat space. The number of drive-through attractions, drive-through haunts, drive-through Christmas light displays and the way that Slice Creative Network came together in Orlando. So this is the one at Six Flags, right?
Yeah, Magic Mountain.
Yeah. You know, if you had told me 10 years ago, number one, if you told me 10 years ago there's going to be a pandemic and we're going to handle it so badly that the country's just going to be fucked for a year, I'd been like, really?
It's disappointing.
But if you had also said, by the way, you're going to be able to pay good money, get in your car, and drive through millions and millions of Christmas lights in an amusement park, I'd have been like, what? Do I get a funnel cake too? No.
And they're doing it through like the end of January. Like they're still doing it on weekends. Why not? Yeah.
Why not?
I'm doing my birthday's this weekend, and we're doing the Electric Daisy Carnival one, the Electric Mile, and which looks fun. I've done a couple of the drive-through things. They've been hit or miss, but you know the intent is there, and I think when somebody nails a good one, and maybe it'll be something like the Six Flags one. We'll see that it can stay open for a while and not just be a holiday thing, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Yeah, well, what's the next slide here? I can't make it out.
I have no idea.
The TikTok musical.
Oh.
Yeah.
Can we just give it up for the TikTok teens as a whole and just the arc of TikTok and its uses over the year?
Yeah, I didn't really get it. I signed up for it like a year and a half or whenever it started, and I'm like, it's kind of Instagram, but I don't get it. And then it started really take off. I started to revisit my account. I'm E_ticket, by the way. But watching people's creativity there in these short bites, watching the political activism, watching talk about diversity, watching the duets and snippets and remix culture,
The remix,
sort of like writ large. Like I go on there, I'm a huge karaoke nerd and I can't get karaoke going right now, of course. So I go on there and find people to duet with, and you find musicians who will lay down the instrumentals and then you sing on top of it. And it's yeah. And so when that TikTok thing started when the musical, the Ratatouille started taking off, it was like, oh, okay, this could actually really be something. And they created a thing, and it was really good. I don't know if you all saw it, but it was.
And they created a thing that raised money for
$1 million.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
For live entertainment, folks.
Yeah.
And hard hit, which is great.
Yeah.
If you're a super nerd and you miss your high school days, do a stroll through TikTok for A-Push.
A-Push.
AP US History. The sheer volume of A-Push and AP World, the sheer volume of snark that exhausted honors high school students managed to pack into tiny clips and yet incisively sum up like things that my AP US history teacher took like 3 boring days of lecture to cover.
Yeah. It's
amazing. The kids are totally all right.
Oh, kids are totally right. One of my favorite hashtags on TikTok is hashtag rednecks for rainbows. and it's literally like Gen Z and millennial, like roughneck looking dudes here in the South who's got thick accents and big old beards, and they're like the most woke people you have ever met, and they're super like pro LGBTQIA, and it's just great. It's I stumbled across that. I was like, what's that hashtag? And I'm scrolling through it, and it's like, oh, cartoon hearts like bursting over my head.
So Ratatouille the musical is obviously like the most high profile of the ones, but the one that started about the guy who just straight up started singing a musical about being in the freezer section at a grocery store, and then other people just joined in from other perspectives and ran with it. Amazing. And it goes back to that like democratization of creation that we've seen over the course of this year.
The other one I love is a guy that does turns random internet drama into musicals or songs.
Yes.
And he'll take arguments between Karens basically and set them to music. And then somebody else took that clip. I don't know if you saw the later one. Somebody took it and added choreography to it and turned it into a music video.
Amazing.
It's genius. It's absolute genius.
Oh my gosh. I have a question. I wanted to ask a question to Cynthia off the air. Of community in Orlando, great job. I got to check this out in person. It was really fantastic. Cynthia mentioned it earlier, but I want to make sure that they got their little shout out here, which was really cool.
Oh,
A lot of great people worked on
I've
that.
seen so many photos of this on my feed. It's adorable.
I figure, this has been quite an amazing show. One of our most highly watched of the year.
Oh God.
Of course, this is the first show of the year. To take us into 2021, can I do the cheesy thing and just say, what are your 3 goals for 2021?
Oh Lord.
Think about it a little bit, percolate it a little bit. And you know what, Andy, let's go to you. 3 goals for 2021. Any type of goals you'd like.
I need to definitely, break some of my bad COVID lockdown eating and drinking habits. It's funny. When I pulled up the YouTube video for one of our first shows, the Men in Black show, and the screenshot of me, I was like, wow, I really packed it on since then. But that and I've gotten obviously my work is creative. I do creative work professionally, but like I really due to all the trauma we've been going through, I really haven't been very creative as much as I would like to be, outside of my job. And I'd like to get back to doing some of my other creative outlet kind of nerdy stuff that I do, which is basically just playing City Skylines. But to be honest, and the third thing, I'd really like to teach more, whether it's volunteer, with the Imagineathon kind of thing, or more classes with the tech workshop series. We try to do the sound design class again this winter, and not enough people signed up. I think that'll probably be like a once a year thing. But I'd love to find more outlets to give back some of the knowledge and experience that I've acquired over the last 25 years, and pass it on to a new generation or generations of up and coming talent.
That's great. Dave, over to you.
Let's see. Number 1, survive with no long-term health complications, because that's the part of COVID that we don't talk about enough and they don't know enough about. It's not just the flu. There's people are getting long-term stuff. That's the other reason you don't want to get this. So that's 1. 2, play guitar. Learn to play guitar. I bought this little digital thing that attaches to my phone or my iPad that I can put headphones on and not bother my husband, and learn how to play guitar, because I've always wanted to. And like Andy, I know there's a lot of people that have found creative outlet but I've been through so much this year that I sort of just shut down. I've been watching TV shows and eating and drinking way too much and playing a little VR. I'm on Oculus and I love that. I've been playing the hell out of a lot of games on that. So, and then third, speaking of gaming, third is to lean into the pivot that I have been presented with. I can't really say much about it, but the work I'm going to be doing is more akin to sort of game design and mixed reality and AR, and not necessarily placemaking. It'll have location-based elements to it later on, but it's kind of a new process and a new bunch of people and a new product. It's a complete left turn for me that yet still leverages what I think I'm good at. And so it is kind of learning. It's flexing some new muscles for me, and that I'm looking forward to that more than a goal. It's something I'm really looking forward to.
Dave, I'm glad you mentioned the long-term effects of COVID, because while I still do think I had it back in January, even though I tested negative for the antibodies last month, I did have memory problems and like brain fog for months after that. And it wasn't just because of, everything, but like seriously, like I was seriously considering going to a neurologist, because it was like, ugh. And then it totally got better. And
I had a friend who had COVID back in April or May, and he recovered and was fine, and died of a blood clot about 3 weeks ago. And they're tying it to COVID because blood clots happen after it. It's not a guarantee that that's how he died, but it's pretty likely because he was otherwise very healthy.
Yeah.
Super cheery.
Patrick,
you. 3 goals for 2021.
3 goals.
Not dying of a blood clot post-COVID. Like Andy and Dave, so much of this year was about survival. And I poured an awful lot of myself into keeping others afloat. Parenting a teenager through this, I mean, thank God I was not trying to get a second grader to sit down at a Zoom all day and do school. But parenting a teenager and helping them and their friends through just their world being upended. I'm a mentor for their robotics team, and dealing with 45 bereft teenagers was, and I did a lot more mentoring and a lot more coaching, and a lot more volunteering this year than I typically have. And I don't begrudge or regret a minute of it. If you're watching this and you're like, oh shit, I took up too much of your time, please don't think that. But I have finite hours and I am all out of spoons, kind of thing. So I think a big goal for me this year is finding a better balance in a world that is going to continue to be upended for quite some time. Whether that's logging off more and embroidering and knitting more, whether that's spending more time very intentionally out in my garden, whether that's like Andy getting up and walking more, because my usual go-to of I go shopping on this day, I do, laps around the Trader Joe's as I keep forgetting stuff, as my method of getting up and out of the house and moving just isn't happening. Because I can still count on 2 hands the number of times I've been in an actual store since March. We are taking it real seriously in this house. So finding a better balance, filling my own tank more, and bluntly getting me, my kid, and my husband safely through this to the other side, all vaccinated, and my teenager dropped off at a dorm, and he gets to go have an actual college experience.
Yeah.
Those are big goals for me this year.
Just a couple things,
Simple things that I'm totally in control of.
Yeah. Bringing CJ back on. I would brought you back, CJ. Here goes, CJ. Why not?
Okay. Okay. I'd say one of my big goals for 2021 is I want to, having just graduated college, I want to prioritize staying in connection with a lot of my friends that have all moved different places. I think that's one of the biggest things I'm realizing post-graduation is something that becomes a lot harder. I'm prioritizing who you stay in contact with. So that's one of my big ones. My second one is hopefully, fingers crossed, I know this is going to continue for a while, but the themed entertainment industry will come back a little bit and I'll be able to transition into some sort of themed entertainment job for my daily life. So I'm looking to do that in 2021. And then my third one, I only had time to come up with 2 big ones. I'd probably place my third one with staying close to family and finally living in a place permanently away. Just making sure I stay close with all my family, both close and long distance relatives.
That's
So
great.
now to you, Patrick.
All right. So I have 3 total goals. Number 1 is spend more quality time with my wife. 100%. That is a goal of mine. As Cynthia alluded to, all these side projects start to add up when you're giving feedback on Slack and you're watching them, you're in bed, and it's like, hey, why are you on your phone? And it's not, whatever the case is. So I definitely want to prioritize that, and I'd say do inspire others to do more, which is why my idea of doing it'll be less commitment to do 5 shows instead of 2. I don't know what I was thinking, but that kind of idea of inspiring others. When I did my mentor project with Kyle, I was like, oh yeah, I kind of could figure that out. And no, we can bring that over here, and we can do that over here. And now we have 12 people doing what I would only do one, or whatever the case may be. Like, that's really cool. I like doing more with less of my time, because there's so many people that want to get involved, and they just need to kind of know how. So I want to do less with more, so I can spend more time with my wife. Those are kind of two. And then I'll join on the health wagon of getting the weight and healthy lifestyle back in order. The interesting thing about quarantine is that you're like, oh, cool, I'm home and this and that and the other. But then there's a lot of maybe walking around you're not doing, or you're not exercising, or whatever the case may be. So I made points of going for long walks and doing things that I wouldn't have done. So health is a thing. And then I'm going to do, I'm going to leave it at that. That's it. 3. So those are my 3 goals. Well, folks, for watching at home, I want to say thank you to everybody who's on the show. Dave Cobb, thank you for being there from day 1. CJ, thank you for being there from day 3. Cynthia, thank you for always being a resource for whatever harebrained scheme I'm coming up with next. And of course, coming on in the show on several points when we're like, hey, we need to talk about Splash Mountain. When you come on, and you're like, I'm coming in. Here we go. And exactly, which has been really fantastic, and we really appreciate you. And of course, DJ, and Andy, thank you for partnering on all this. I would never be able to work with Andy if it wasn't for this. So, as opposed to like a random phone call about music that we used to have every now and again of like, hey, Reptar needs to sound like this or whatever it is. So big thank you to all of you who are watching at home. This was a highly watched show. I do want to close by saying we have a brand new show that's coming out on this Friday called Unsung Heroes, which is really an incredible a premise of just highlighting voices that we normally don't get to hear from. The hosts are Chris Rilrich and Cynthia Vergon. They're broadcasting from Europe, so we're now an international network as of Friday at 12:01 Eastern.
Fancy.
Yeah, we did we did a test show over the break, and they're a lot of fun. I think you're gonna all enjoy it. On the first episode, they're gonna be introducing themselves and getting to know you. They're quite a handful of fun, so you're gonna really enjoy it. We're looking forward to that. So with all that, Dave and Cynthia, please hold on. Don't go anywhere. Let's go ahead and roll out with Reese's countdown, and then we'll see you next week, everybody.
Thank you.